name is Ruth Reedy. I'm the Director of Strategy at Upbuild. Do want to take a moment and echo something that Glenn said earlier, which is that the real value that you're going to get out of a conference like this is not just what we're going to say, which hopefully you get some value out of that, since we came all the way out here, but the real value that you're going to see from this is the connections that you make today. And yes, come say hi to me. I'm super nice. I'm very friendly. Come say hi to Cyrus and Dana and Rob and all the other speakers. We would love to talk to you. Don't forget to also network with each other. The connections that you make with each other, especially the connections that you make with the people who are at the same point in their careers that you are. Maybe you're just starting out. Maybe you've been doing this a couple of years. You meet the other people who've been doing this for a couple of years. 5 years from now, you're still in the same points in your career, only now you're both crushing it. And that's when you can really start to see those relationships turn into business opportunities, plus you've made a lot of really awesome friends along the way. But my talk today is not about networking, it's about why you should invest in technical SEO. Hey, the clicker is working, Charles.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about why it's more important than ever to be technical in the world of SEO. We're going to be talking about what good technical SEO looks like and what it means for a business to invest in technical SEO. So a question that I'm getting a lot recently from clients and from business owners and from marketers even is, do we even really need to be technical anymore? And you look at modern CMS providers and the way that they're advertising themselves, a lot of what they're saying is around how easy it is to build a website now. And that's true. The barrier to entry to building a website has never been lower. You no longer need to code, you no longer need to be a designer in order to put together a website that looks at least okay and works at least okay. And companies like Squarespace and Wix and GoDaddy that have their own CMS systems advertise on this a lot. Look like an expert, everything you need, no design skills needed. Build a website in under an hour, it's easy to use, do it yourself, you don't need tech skills. It's never been easier to build a website, and that's cool in a lot of ways. At the same time, search engines like Google are getting better and better at crawling and parsing information. And the classic example is JavaScript. And for a long time, search engines had trouble with JavaScript. Starting a few years ago, Google and Bing and other search engines have gotten a lot more sophisticated in their ability to find and crawl and execute things like JavaScript. So a lot of things that used to be barriers to indexation and crawling from search engines are no longer as much the case. Search engines are getting a lot better at figuring stuff out. To my view, SEO is like accounting. If you're a business, SEO is like accounting. If you run a small business, you can probably run the books for your small business by yourself for a while and do okay. You can do that alongside all of your other business tasks. Hopefully you're not going bankrupt. There are tools out there that can help you. You can do that okay for a while, but at scale, as your business grows, as your website grows, sooner or later you're going to have to bring in a professional because it's complicated enough that you're not going to have time to do it, and also it becomes complex enough that doing it wrong could have serious consequences for you. With accounting, that could be something like getting audited or going bankrupt. With technical SEO, it could mean just not making very much money from SEO. So you can do some SEO by yourself as a business owner for a while. As your website increases in complexity, it becomes more and more important to invest in technical SEO. And people say, oh, Google can figure it out. I don't need to do this anymore because Google can figure out my website. They say so all the time, right? We can crawl JavaScript now. We understand the difference between duplicate pages. It's fine. We can figure it out. And yes, they can, kind of. More on that later. It doesn't mean that they will, because Google doesn't care about you. Google doesn't care about your business. Google doesn't care about your ability to drive traffic to your website and grow your business. That's not Google's mission. Google's mission is to make sure that people can find what they're looking for when they search. And if Google has a hard time figuring out whether or not you have what searchers want, there are plenty of other websites that also have what searchers want that they can rank instead. Google has no incentive to spend time, energy, effort, resources figuring out your specific website. So don't rely on a third party. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with SEO is we are reliant on a third party, Google, to drive traffic to our sites. Don't rely on them to figure it out. Make it as easy for them as possible. It's also true that Google isn't perfect. And again, I'm coming back to JavaScript, and the reason is because I fight with developers about JavaScript a lot. Because Google has said, oh, we can crawl JavaScript, we can parse JavaScript, but we're still seeing in the SEO world that that's not the end of the story. Distill, which is Rob's company, and Rob will be talking later, did a study a couple of years ago showing that even when Google is capable of parsing JavaScript, there are still improvements that you can make that can result in a whole bunch of ranking and traffic increases. So whether or not they can execute JavaScript is not the end of the story. There's still incremental improvements you can make that can improve traffic, improve your conversion rates. Optimize it, you might say, for search engines. I don't know, have you heard about this? Optimizing for search engines? Yeah?
Yeah.
And yeah, you're gonna hear a lot of just create good content, and you're gonna need some content. Content's important, otherwise there's nothing on your website. But just creating good content doesn't matter if no one can find it, doesn't matter if no one can see it. To Cyrus's point, search engine results pages are becoming more and more competitive, and just creating good content isn't gonna cut it anymore because a lot of other people have good content, and they have the technical underpinnings of it to drive traffic to that content and make money. And the next thing that I often hear from people is, oh, my CMS already does SEO. And a lot of CMS providers have some kind of SEO functionality. Wix does, Squarespace does, WordPress has a number of SEO plugins. There is a layer of SEO functionality that you can get from your CMS. Kind of. The SEO functionality that you're going to get from most CMSs is going to be things like title tags, things like meta descriptions, things like content fields, on-page SEO. That stuff's very important. I like to think of it as the furniture in your house. If you have a house and there's no furniture in it, there's no carpet, there's no drapes, and you invite people to a party in that house, that party's not going to be very fun. On-page SEO is very important. You have to have furniture in your house. However, if you have a really nice sofa and really nice drapes and carpet, and your house is falling down or covered in mold or so remote that no one knows where it is, people are also not going to come to your party. And that's where technical SEO comes in. Technical SEO is the foundation of your website that your content sits on top of that enables it to be successfully crawled and indexed. And without it, no one's going to come to your party either because they can't find it or because it looks sketchy and they don't want to come. In the end, technical SEO is really about future-proofing your website. You may have a website that works fine right now, that drives traffic fine right now. But to Cyrus's point, again, Cyrus set up a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. He's a good dude, I used to work for him. Future-proofing your website means that you should have a website that's not just going to function today, but that as SEO evolves, as the search world continues to evolve and that technology continues to evolve, you're not scrambling to play catch up. You're not suddenly losing all your traffic, having to figure out what was going on, and then recovering. You're instead paying attention to what's happening, making changes now, and investing in the future, so as the future happens, you are prepared to meet it. So let's talk about some current topics in technical SEO. For the purposes of this conversation, I'm breaking technical SEO up into three main factors. There are many different ways to think about it. This is the way that I like to think about it. And those three factors are performance, which is basically how well a server can access and a browser can render your website. Crawlability, how easy is it for a search engine spider to navigate from page to page and find every piece of content on your site. And indexation, which is once that search engine has crawled your website, how well are the pages and pieces of content from that website showing up in search. So the first major factor, it's a performance factor, but it definitely affects all three factors, is site speed. Page load time is a huge topic in technical SEO right now. I'm not the first person to talk about it today, and I'm only the second person talking. I'm probably not going to be the last person talking about it either. Page load time is becoming more and more important. And the question that I often get from clients then is, okay, well, how fast should my pages load? The answer that I give that is not at all helpful is as fast as possible. It's true, but it's not particularly helpful. What's more helpful to think about is that incremental page speed and page load time improvements don't really start doing you any good until you can get your page load time under 5 seconds. 5 seconds is about the time when, as you make your pages faster and faster, once they load after 5 seconds, 5 seconds or less, that's when you're going to start seeing a positive impact to your conversion rate, to your bounce rate. You know, if you think about it, if you improve your page load time by 25%, but you've taken it from 12 seconds to 9 seconds, your users, that's still really slow, and they don't care. So goal 1, get it under 5 seconds. From there, every incremental improvement, every little bit of time that you can shave off of that page load time is going to result in an improvement in your conversion rate and in a decrease in your bounce rate. Ideally, you want your pages to load under 2 seconds. That's very fast. Most pages on the web don't load that fast, but as close as you can get, the closer you can get, even microseconds, every little bit that you can shave off of that page load time is going to result in a return under 5 seconds. So where do we look to see how fast our pages are loading? The first place most people are going to go is the page speed report in Google Analytics. It'll show you on average how fast your pages are loading, what their average load time is. This is a screenshot from a client who is hovering right around that 5 second sweet spot. You know, the occasional dips, the occasional spikes. That's the first place most people go, and that's a good place to start, to find out where are your pages that are taking the longest to load, what's happening there, where can we make those faster. But it's only one small piece of the story. The next place most people are going to look is Page Speed Insights for Chrome, which is part of Chrome Developer Tools. That will actually give you Google's suggestions for things that you can do according to Google's defined page load best practices to improve your page load time. And again, this is a really good place to start. You've got a lot of good suggestions. Most of you guys, I'm assuming, are at least somewhat familiar with this report. Yeah, nodding, great. I'm not going to talk about it much more. Except to say that the problem that I have with this report is that the goal of this report is to say, if this page stayed basically the same way it is now, what are the improvements that we could make to make it as fast as possible? So it's not going to tell you, take this image off, stop loading this script. It's going to say, assuming this image stays on the page, here's how fast you can get it to load. Assuming this script continues to execute on the page, here's how to defer it or change where it goes in order to make that faster. It's optimizing the existing assets, which isn't always the whole story of why your page isn't loading fast. I really like to use a tool called Pingdom. I think Pingdom generates really great, really fast page speed reports. It's really easy to share with clients. This is the Pingdom report for the Peepcon page. It got a B, which is pretty good. Page load time 3.78 seconds, under 5 over 2. It's faster than about 43% of the web. It's a nice middle-of-the-road standard web page. It could definitely be faster. One of the things I like about Pingdom is that you can test how a page loads from various locations around the world. That's really helpful if you're doing international SEO. A page might load faster from San Jose than it does from Manila, and that's useful information to have. What I really want you guys to look at, though, when you're looking at page load time is the waterfall. The waterfall is a document of every asset on your page, how long it takes them to load, and the order in which they load. I like a site called webpagetest.org for this. You can also use a tool called GTmetrix. Those are kind of my two favorite tools to view the waterfall. The nice thing about this is it shows you the assets that are loading and in what order. And that'll show you not only what's taking a really long time, but whether or not you can change the order of things in order to make certain events happen faster. So if your entire page takes 5 seconds to load and no content displays on your page for those whole 5 seconds, that feels a lot longer to the user than if you start loading content on seconds 1 and 2. Maybe your page hasn't completely loaded yet, but you're starting to display assets sooner. Those are some of the things you can manipulate in order to increase your conversion rate and decrease your bounce rate. This is also, I think, the best document or diagram to show clients to say, okay, look at this one asset that takes forever to load and has to load before the page can be interacted with. Let's change that. Let's optimize that. Let's take it off. Let's take it off. I don't need it. Chrome recently introduced a new tool in Chrome Dev Tools called Lighthouse Audits. Lighthouse Audits will show you exactly what your page looks like as it loads, as different pieces of content load. And what is really important about Lighthouse audits is they're using a metric called first meaningful paint. First meaningful paint, I think, is one of the most important metrics to pay attention to as you're optimizing your website for performance. First meaningful paint happens before page load. Page load is the end. First meaningful paint is the first moment that a meaningful piece of content, so not just your backgrounds and your CSS styles and your colors, but an actual piece of content is displayed to the user. And it's one of the metrics that Chrome looks at to figure out how fast a page is loading. Because again, if your whole page takes longer to load, but you're displaying that first meaningful content sooner, that's a better user experience than showing them a blank page for the whole time, even if ultimately their wait is slower. So this is kind of my point here, is that page load time, the time it takes the entire page to load, is not the whole story. It's not the whole story for your users, and Google is smart enough to understand that, so it's not the whole story for Google anymore either. So when you're looking at how fast your pages load, don't just look at page load time. That's the whole page loading. Any of you who have loaded a website, which I'm assuming most of you have looked at a website at some point here at this Internet Marketing Conference, have seen that there are times when the site's loading, the page is loading, you can start reading your article. You can click to the next page. You don't even have to wait for it to load. These are metrics that users care about. They're metrics that I know the Chrome developers care about, and I'm assuming that they're metrics that Google cares about as well, since it's easy for them to get that data in. So you want to look at how fast your first byte is delivered. That's the time it takes your server to deliver the first little piece of information. You want to look at your first paint. That's the first time something is visible to the user. First meaningful paint, we talked about that. You can see that in Lighthouse. Time to first interactive, I think, is a really interesting one, especially on mobile. Even if the page hasn't loaded all the way yet, what's the first moment in which a user can interact with that? It's a really helpful user metric to optimize for bounce rate. You want to look at how fast it takes the document object model to load. How fast it takes the whole page to load, yeah, you can get that in Google Analytics. And then how fast it takes the entire page to become interactive, time to fully interactive, which is often actually longer than it takes the page to load by a few fractions of a second. Look at all of these metrics and optimize for all of them. Page load is a very simplistic view of the site as you've ever seen of your site, and you guys are better than that. If you want to make a business case for optimizing your web performance, I can't recommend WPOstats.com highly enough. It has every case study ever on optimizing a website for performance and what the results were. It is the best place to find things to show your boss and see here, this other company that's very much like ours optimized this particular performance metric and they saw the following increase in sales. That's a really compelling case to make, as opposed to this Oklahoma lady got up on a conference and said that I should do this. I mean, I'm right, but that's not going to help you with your boss. If you guys want to learn more about this, I saw a great presentation by Patrick Meenan, who is a Chrome engineer at Tech SEO Boost this fall. Got a link to it in my slides, which I assume will be available after the conference. Yeah. All right. Next thing that impacts your performance is code bloat. That's unnecessary code on your website. I can't tell you how many clients I have had over the years that have a giant website and have code on their website that no one knows what it does. Someone bought a tool and installed a pixel, and that was 3 years ago, and that person left, and they're not paying for the tool anymore, but they never took the code off the site. It's easy to put code on a website. People often forget to take it back off, and code bloat is one of the top factors in unnecessary performance distractions. It's one of the top things bogging down your performance. Really interesting link here to a study by a guy named Ben Regenspan on Free Code Camp about how Facebook like buttons are an average of 16% of the average website's code. That's huge. That's massive. And this is the area where if you really want to optimize your website for performance, you need to be ruthless about the amount of third-party calls that you're making, because every resource you're loading from a third party, like Facebook, like AdSense, like LinkedIn, you need those sometimes. Sometimes you don't. So I want you to regularly be looking at the waterfall of your sites and seeing, what code don't we need anymore? What code is on every page that doesn't actually need to be on every page? And take that out. And get your developers to take that out so they don't break your website. But get rid of it, you don't need it. Chrome has a Chrome DevTools, and I love Chrome DevTools, I use it all the time, has a great report. It's only on a page-by-page basis, which can make it a little clunky, but that will show you, as the page loads, what are the CSS and JavaScript elements that are loading on the page that aren't being used to render the page. Can you take those off? Do you really need this on every page? The more you can get unnecessary code off of your website, the faster it's going to load, and that's better for everybody. Let's talk about AMP, about AMP. Cyrus already talked a bit about it. The thing that I want to talk to you about with AMP is the reason that AMP exists. AMP exists because Google can't wait for you guys to get your act together. Google can't wait anymore for your site to be fast. They've tried a lot of stuff. They tried mobile getting, they've tried the mobile-friendly label. They've tried a lot of stuff to get people to make their sites load faster on mobile. They were finally like, you know what, fine, we'll just do it. Here, take it. It's AMP. That's the whole reason AMP exists, because Google couldn't wait anymore. Users need sites to load fast on mobile now, and that's why AMP exists. What this means for us as SEOs is that everything we can do to make our sites load faster on mobile, that includes implementing AMP, but I don't want you to just implement AMP and say, I'm done, now the site is fast, hooray. Because my hypothesis is that AMP is going to go away. AMP is not forever. Google is eventually going to figure out how to do what it needs to do without this extra code, and when that happens, don't forget to take AMP off your site. We just talked about this. But think about what else you're doing besides AMP. Yeah, AMP's a great opportunity now, and if it only works for another 2 years, that's 2 years of revenue that you got. That's not nothing. But think about what else you're doing to make your site load fast on mobile. What else are you doing to improve your site's mobile experience? Because my prediction is that AMP is temporary. One of the things that people often do when they're trying to improve mobile experience is responsive design. How many of you have a responsively designed website in your care? Glenn says everyone, but then no one raises their hand. They're very shy. Okay, we'll assume there are a lot of shy people with responsive websites out there. How many of you are actually looking at that website on different devices on a regular basis? How many of you are trying to use that website on a tablet, on a mobile device, on another mobile device, on a teeny tiny Chromebook, on a big giant screen? Having a responsive site is one thing. Actually making sure that that responsive site is usable and has a good user experience at every screen size is another. This is another area where you can continue optimizing for performance after you've done the minimum. So don't just say, now our site is responsive and my work here is done. Figure out how you can make that user experience better on every size screen. All right, so those are some major performance issues. Let's talk a little bit about crawlability. Let's talk about crawl budget. Crawl budget, Gary Illish had a pretty interesting article about this on Google Webmaster Central a while back. Crawl budget is the amount of resources that Google is willing to devote to crawling your site. Because crawling your site does cost Google money. Data is money, and it costs Google data to crawl your site. It costs Google money. Not very much, but some. And if you think about all of the websites in the world, that adds up. So crawl budget is the amount of time, money, resources that Google is willing to spend crawling your site. At the end of that budget, they're not going to crawl your site anymore, and it doesn't matter if your site is done being crawled or not. And again, Google doesn't care. They crawl your whole site. Your site's hard to crawl. They don't care. They just won't crawl it. It's up to you to make sure that your site is being fully crawled and crawled well and frequently. One of the things that you can look at to make sure that your site is being crawled well is your index covered in Google Webmaster Tools. I'm sorry, Google Search Console. Sorry, I'm old. You can tell that this is important because it is one of the first features that Google has rolled out in the new Search Console.
Yeah.
What percentage of your pages, your total pages that you're submitting in a sitemap, are being indexed? Here's a site we just started looking at that's not doing great at this. They have about 12.3 thousand pages. Of those pages, about 4.3 thousand are being crawled. So of 12,000 pages, about 4,300 are being indexed. That's not good. That's not good, y'all. That is a lot of extra pages that they have spent time and money and energy building that Google does not care about at all. Make sure you're looking at this regularly. If you have a ton of pages that are not being indexed, that's a clue that you've got a crawlability problem. Classic crawlability problem is duplicate content. When most people think duplicate content in the SEO world, they think, oh, www versus non-www, HTTPS versus HTTP, et cetera, we're all past that, right? You know about this? Yeah? Okay, get on my level. What we're talking about with duplicate content in the modern world are ways in which your pages, your website automatically creates potentially infinite variations of pages. I pick on Macy's.com a lot because it's a hot mess. And here's one example. This is the dresses page on Macy's.com. You can look at dresses. You can look at all of the dresses. There's 5,600 different dresses that you can look at. And when I try to sort or filter, what you can see is that I can sort by bestsellers, and it generates one URL with bestseller and my session ID in it. Then I sort by price, low to high. It generates another page that says price low to high with my session ID in it. In addition to, I think, 10 different sort options, I can also show 60, 120, or all results. I can show my results in 4 columns or 3 columns. And every single one of those choices brings up a new URL. It is a different page. For me, the user, it is the same content. For Google, it is literally thousands of URLs with the same content. This is what duplicate content is. This is the problem with duplicate content and crawlability. www versus non-www is not great. This takes fixing. So look out for it, especially if you have an e-commerce site. You also want to look out for infinite spaces. Events calendar plugins are a huge culprit of this. This is an events calendar on a page where I can actually go 100 years into the future and see if they have any events in 2118. They don't, but there's a page for it. There's a page for February 19th, 2118. And this is the kind of thing that a search bot can fall into and just crawl, use up all your crawl budget and leave, and they're like, well, that sucked. And then they don't come back. Well, they do, but they don't crawl as deep. You don't want spider traps like this on your site, so make sure that you don't have them. There's some new crawl stats in the new Google Search Console, which are pretty cool. You can actually see the time most recently that Google crawled the page down to the time of day. You can fetch it. OHGM, which is a site run by a former distilled employee of Rob's, recently did a study on what does and does not count as a crawl in Google Search Console, which I think is pretty interesting. You guys should check it out. But look at how frequently your pages are being crawled. When was the last time they were crawled? What happened? How did it go? How's your indexation after that crawl? You also want to be looking at your server log files if you can convince your developers to give them to you, which will be hard. You should get them though, because what you want to see is exactly what happens when Googlebot hits your site. Where do they go? What do they do? You can get that from your server log files. Built Visible has a really great resource on log file analysis. It's a little old now, I think it was from 2016, but it's still got some really great stuff in there. I send people to it all the time. Learn how to look at your server log files and figure out what Googlebot is looking at, is doing on your site, so you can help them do it better. You can also run your own crawl. Use tools like Screaming Frog and Deep Crawl to run your own crawl. Where does that spider get lost? I remember the first time I ran Screaming Frog on SEOmoz.org. It crashed the Moz network because there were so many spider traps on the site at that time. If you have a forum, you probably have spider traps on your site, just FYI. So take a look. Where's the spider get lost? Where does it get bogged down? If you really want to see what Google sees when they look at your site using a headless browser. Google at this point is a headless browser. I think they're usually using a version of Chrome that's a couple versions behind the current version of Chrome. But you can use a headless browser to look at your site and see what renders, what doesn't render. Look at it exactly how the robot looks at it and see where are the resources that aren't being loaded, where are the resources that aren't displaying the way that I would expect them to display. Headless browsing is how Google looks at your site, so they're how you should look at your site too. Okay, so that's some current problems in technical SEO. Everybody still with me?
Yeah.
Good. Let's talk about the future. Mobile first indexing. This is actually the present, but it's important to the future. Google has recently announced their mobile first index, which means the mobile index is going to be what's pretty much driving the boat in SERPs. This is, again, another indication that your mobile experience is getting more and more important. It's something that you shouldn't sleep on. Part of the reason that it's important is because the modern web searches don't always use a keyboard. You know, people are increasingly using voice search, increasingly using things like Twitter, which are single-page websites. You load your Twitter homepage, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of people, pieces of content. Those pieces of content do have their own URLs, but they're displaying, and Google has to get more sophisticated at crawling those, understanding those experiences online and off. This is the modern world. It's moving past everything has a URL. It's moving past every piece of content has its own URL, and that's how we think about the web, and into a place where content can live outside of those boundaries. What I'm talking about is device agnostic information. This is, I think, where the future of providing content on the web is going, is information that can be displayed on a desktop computer, sure, on a phone, tablet, sure, but also in voice search, also on a smartwatch, also in a smart device. People's refrigerators have the internet now. My baby monitor has the internet. Everything has the internet. I turn the internet off on my baby monitor because I'm paranoid, but it came with it. And more devices are going to be used to search. So we can't think of search as just desktop or mobile anymore. It's a whole new experience. To Cyrus's point, what that's probably not going to mean is a decrease in search volume for mobile and desktop. People are still going to use those just fine. But it does mean all kinds of new opportunities for content to be displayed to people and for people to interact with your brand outside of those traditional experiences. So what you need to look at in terms of your content is how easy is it for that content to be extracted and displayed from device to device to device. And that's why featured snippets are important. Featured snippets are pretty much what's driving voice search right now. And so they're a really good indicator of how well your website will succeed as voice search becomes more prevalent. But your site's ability to earn featured snippets also sends you an important other clue, which is how easy is it for search engines find a piece of content on your website, pull it out of your website, and display it somewhere else. And as search moves away from the screen, as it moves away from the URL, that ability for your content to be extracted and displayed is what's going to drive those other results. So keep an eye on featured snippets, because they're a signal that Google is successfully extracting content from your site. This is another reason why semantic markup continues to be important. I think eventually semantic markup will probably be less important than it is right now, simply because it doesn't have the adoption rates to support itself long term. But in the short term, semantic markup is still the best way to say to Google in no uncertain terms, here's my information, here are the pieces of information, here's exactly where they are, here's exactly what they are, you can pull those out and put them somewhere else. Recipe markup continues to be the best example of semantic markup, because they're pulling out all kinds of information. And if you look at the recipe results, what you'll see is that Google is constantly testing different iterations and different ways of displaying that same information. You don't have to change the way that that information is displayed on your page if you've made it possible for Google to pull it out, mix and match it, and display it to people in the way that they're testing to see if it's the best way to do that. So semantic markup is still, I think, a huge opportunity for SEO. The good news is that you no longer have to inline semantic markup in order for it to work in the search results. You don't have to go into the code and add it to the individual elements. It's actually now possible to implement semantic markup fully through JSON LD in Google Tag Manager. Mike and I wrote a post about this on build.io that I will link to on Twitter, because I forgot to put it on this slide, because I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Machine learning is the other super important thing right now, and people got really, really freaked out by rank variant and thought, oh no, it's the robot overlords, it's Terminator, we're all doomed. That's not exactly what's happening with machine learning. What is happening is that the human brain is very complicated and capable of making pretty complex inferences. It's capable of metaphor, it's capable of being like, oh, it's that place I put that thing that time. And your friend is like, totally. That's the human brain. That place I put that thing that time, not super useful to Google in terms of knowing what you're talking about. So what they're doing is applying machine learning to see, okay, when people search for something, we have no idea what they're talking about, we're going to show them some stuff and see what they click on. Over time, and in aggregate, they can use that to make more sophisticated inferences about what terms mean to people, what people want semantically when they search. And what this means is that incentivizing a click to your website and making people have a good experience once they get there, user engagement metrics, are going to be increasingly important as a ranking factor. Cyrus is talking about that later, so I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, except to say that if you're not investing in user experience, you are already way behind the ball here. Because once people come to your website, the experience that they have is increasingly a ranking factor. And that's good, yeah. But also, people come to your website and having a good experience is how they give you money in exchange for goods and services, and that's better. Let's not forget in SEO that our ultimate goal is for a person to give us money. User experience is a great way to do that.
Yes.
So what does it mean to invest in technical SEO? Invest in cross-device tracking. This is the first thing, and this is still a sort of a new field, and it's something that I don't think anybody is perfect at yet, but start thinking now about how you're going to track users from device to device. How are you going to track the customer journey from mobile to tablet to desktop to mobile to tablet to purchase? Do you know that that's the same person? Do you understand their journey? Are you making sure that their touch points on every step of the way are optimized to give them a great experience? Start investing in that now, start thinking about that now, because it's only going to become more important as devices become more different and varied. Test your website on more devices. I don't mean use an emulator to make your screen the shape and size of a Nexus tablet screen. I mean actually get out your Nexus tablet and try to use your website. I think that this is a major oversight that a lot of SEOs have, is that even though increasingly we're optimizing for mobile experiences, a lot of us are still doing that on desktop devices. Get out of that box to the extent that you can. I know it's hard, not everybody has a million devices to test with. To the extent that you can, make sure that you're using your website, your client's websites on different devices. Try to get all the way through the funnel. What happens? Where does it break down? Look at that data, look at your mobile data, look at your tablet data. Where are the points of friction that you may not see on a desktop that are keeping people from converting on mobile? And fix them. Hire SEOs who speak developer. I am somebody who has occasionally said things about SEO and was not careful of the words that I chose it, and I heard about it from developers. I heard about it. And they were right, because it's important to be precise when you're talking about something like the code of a website. Make sure, as an SEO, that you can speak coherently about the code of a website. You can speak to developers. Learn some code. Because if you can't convince developers that you know what you're talking about, there is no way that they are going to make a change to their website. It's very important to them, based on the word of someone who they don't trust to know what they're talking about. So learn to talk to developers about code. At the same time, it's important for businesses to hire developers who speak SEO. Again, the number one fight that I'm having right now with developers is over whether or not Google can parse JavaScript. They say, yes, it's fine. I say the situation is a lot more nuanced than that. And we go around and around and around. It's important that as you're investing in development resources, you're investing in developers who are keyed into performance, to crawlability, to indexation, to the problems that those create for marketing, and are open to making changes to support that environment. You need to hire designers who get user experience. You do not want your website to be beautiful and useless. You do not want people to open your website and think, oh, fun, a scavenger hunt. Because no one thinks that. Instead they think, I just want to know how late you're open. What do I click? Do I click experiences? Do I click holla at us? What do I click? Don't do that. Hire designers who understand user experience. Test, look at the data. How are people using your website? How can you make it better? I don't care if it's pretty. A lot of ugly websites out there convert great. A lot of pretty websites out there don't. Learn Chrome developer tools. I obviously love Chrome developer tools because I shouted out like 4 times in this conference. Code School has a really awesome Chrome developer tools course. Familiarize yourself with it. Learn how to use the console. Learn how to use their functionality around the waterfall. Learn how to test little bits of JavaScript in it. It's real fun. A of all. B of all, it will give you a deeper understanding of your website using a tool that's available from any device that has Chrome enabled. So even when you're at your parents' house and you're using their desktop computer over Christmas, you can still test your client sites because you can at least install Chrome. You need more than technical SEO. If you have a very sturdy and well-built house with no furniture in it, your party will not be very fun. I'm not telling you that you need to invest in technical SEO at the expense of things like content and promotion and brand building and whole funnel, full channel marketing. But having a site that functions well technically is going to make all of that other stuff that sits on top of it a lot easier. And again, it's going to pay off and pay off and pay off into the future as Google and other search engines get more and more technical and more technically sophisticated. So here's some homework. Learn dev tools. Take unused code off your sites. Check how well you're being crawled and indexed. Make your sites faster. No, faster than that. Faster. Look at your site on multiple devices. Improve UX. Pursue featured snippets. It's a great opportunity. And it's so fun. And your clients Google themselves when they see the featured snippet and they feel so happy. Implement semantic markup. And get your developers, designers, and SEOs on the same page now. Agree on a roadmap for the future so that you can continue succeeding in 2020, 2025. Even up to 2118, where that events calendar will take you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.